turn on the camera, no fancy filters, no scripted drama, just the raw truth of today. Look at this screen right now. If you came here looking for an aesthetic morning routine with soft lighting and perfectly organized desks, you might want to click away, because honestly, this morning started in the messiest way possible. The alarm went off at 6:45. I heard it, I reached out, and I slammed snooze 3 times. When I finally dragged myself out of bed, my hair looked like a complete bird's nest. My eyes were half open, and the first thing my foot touched was a cold, forgotten sock on the floor. That is the real life you rarely see on the internet, but that is exactly what happened. I walked into the kitchen with one goal in mind, just one simple goal: make a decent cup of hot coffee and sit down in peace. But of course, life had other plans. I opened the cabinet, grabbed the coffee jar, and my hand slipped. Fine brown powder scattered all over the white counter. Not a huge catastrophe, but when you are barely awake, cleaning up spilled coffee feels like running a marathon. I stood there, staring at the counter for a solid 30 seconds, just questioning every single life choice that led to this moment. I wiped it down slowly. I boiled the water, poured it into my favorite mug, and took that first sip. The steam hit my face, and for a second, things felt manageable. I looked out the window, the sky was gray and quiet, the streets below were just starting to wake up, and I told myself today would be different. Today would be the day I follow my strict daily routine. I had a whole checklist in my mind: clean the room, finish 4 hours of focused editing, reply to every single pending email, go for a proper workout, and cook a healthy meal. A perfectly disciplined day. Well, if you know anything about my life, you know that whenever I make strict plans, the universe takes it as a personal challenge. By 8:30, I was sitting at my desk. I opened my laptop, ready to conquer the world. I put my headphones on, clicked on my project folder, and boom, the internet dropped, just completely vanished. The little loading circle on the screen started spinning endlessly as if it was mocking me. I restarted the router, nothing. I toggled the connection on and off, still nothing. Right at that exact second, right when my frustration was peaking, my neighbor decided it was the perfect time to start drilling into their wall, a loud, sharp, relentless vibration echoing through my ceiling. Brrr, stop! Brrr, stop! I took off my headphones, placed them on the desk, leaned back in my chair, and just laughed. Because really, what else can you do? You plan for a productive, quiet morning, and instead, you get disconnected internet and a home renovation concert right above your head. I sat there for 20 minutes, staring at my empty to-do list. I could have stayed mad, I could have stressed out, but then I thought, why am I forcing this? Why am I trying so hard to stick to a routine that is clearly fighting back right now? So I decided to break the rule. Routine sehat car, completely off script. I shut the laptop screen, I grabbed my keys, put on my worn out sneakers, grabbed my camera, and walked out the front door. No destination in mind, no planned schedule, just stepping out into the fresh air to see where the day would take me. The moment the apartment building door closed behind me, the cool breeze hit my face. It felt amazing. The city smelled like morning dew, wet asphalt, and fresh bread from the bakery down the street. Sometimes we spend so much time trapped between 4 walls, staring at glowing screens, that we forget there is a whole living, breathing world outside. I started walking down the main road. The morning rush was in full swing. People were rushing to catch the bus. School kids with heavy backpacks were chatting and laughing. Street vendors were setting up their colorful fruit carts. And stray dogs were lazily stretching in the rare patches of sunlight. It was chaotic, loud, and totally unscripted. I stopped by a tiny tea stall at the corner of the street. It is a place I walk past almost every single day, but I never actually stop because I am always in a hurry. Today I stopped. The vendor, an elderly man with kind eyes and a warm smile, was boiling a giant pot of tea. The aroma of crushed ginger and cardamom was floating in the air. I asked for a small cup. He poured it with such practiced ease, lifting the kettle high and letting the steaming liquid drop straight into the glass without spilling a single drop. I took the warm glass in my hands and leaned against the railing. That first sip was magic. It was sweet, spicy, and scorching hot. As I stood there drinking my tea, I started watching the people around me. An old gentleman was sitting on a plastic stool, reading a newspaper folded into four squares, completely unfazed by the honking traffic. Next to him, two friends were debating something passionately, waving their hands and laughing so loudly that everyone turned to look. In that moment, I realized something important. We often think a good vlog needs grand travel, expensive gear, or extraordinary events. But the real stories, the raw moments of life, are happening right here in front of us in these tiny, ordinary interactions. While I was finishing my tea, I noticed a strange little alleyway across the road that I had never explored before. It was narrow, shaded by overgrown trees, with old brick houses and colorful balconies hanging overhead. Curiosity got the better of me. I paid for my tea, thanked the uncle, and crossed the street. Walking into that alley felt like stepping into another world. The roar of the traffic instantly faded into a muffled hum. The ground was uneven, lined with cobblestones, and the air felt cooler. Potted plants were lined up outside every doorway, and a fluffy ginger cat was sitting on a wooden bench, watching me with suspicious, half-closed eyes. I took out my camera and started recording some quiet B-roll. The gentle light filtering through the leaves, the texture of the old wooden doors, the cat slowly blinking at the lens. For the first time all week, I felt truly relaxed. No pressure to create content, no deadlines hanging over my head, just capturing what felt real and peaceful. Then, of course, the universe decided to throw another small twist into my peaceful detour. I heard a sudden rumble in the distance. I looked up through the tree branches, and the sky had turned from light gray to dark charcoal. Before I could even check the weather forecast on my phone, a heavy drop of water landed right on my forehead. Then another, and another. Within 2 minutes, the sky opened up. It was not just a light drizzle, it was a proper sudden downpour. I quickly tucked my camera inside my jacket to protect the lens and started looking around for shelter. The cobblestone street became slick and shiny within seconds. I sprinted toward a small blue metal awning outside an old bookstore that looked like it had been there for 50 years. I made it under the roof just in time, panting and shaking the raindrops off my sleeves. My shoes were soaked, the bottom of my jeans was damp, but the camera was safe. A few seconds later, 3 other people came running under the exact same awning to escape the rain. A young delivery rider holding a package under his raincoat, an office worker carrying an umbrella that had completely turned inside out from the wind, and a little kid holding his mother's hand, splashing water on purpose with his bright yellow boots. We were all squished together under this tiny 2-meter strip of metal roof, watching the rain hammer down onto the road. The office worker looked at his broken umbrella, looked at us, and just sighed loudly. The delivery guy chuckled, and soon all of us started laughing at the sheer absurdity of the situation. We were total strangers, brought together by a random rain cloud, sharing a tiny dry space on a Tuesday morning. The shopkeeper of the bookstore, hearing the noise outside, opened the creaky glass door and invited us all inside to wait out the storm. Stepping inside that shop was incredible. The smell hit me immediately. That rich, unmistakable scent of aged paper, leather covers, and wood polish. Books were stacked everywhere, from the floor to the ceiling, teetering in tall piles that looked like they might collapse if you breathed too hard. The owner, a soft-spoken man wearing round glasses, pointed to a small wooden table near the back and told us we could browse as long as we liked. I wandered down the narrow aisles, brushing my fingers along the spines of old books. I found handwritten notes left inside vintage novels, old bookmarks with faded train tickets from decades ago, and forgotten postcards tucked between dusty pages. It felt like walking through hundreds of lives and memories all at once. I ended up finding an old photography journal filled with black and white portraits of daily life from the 1980s. I sat down on a wooden crate in the corner, flipping through the pages while the rain continued to beat against the front window. Time completely stopped. I forgot about my canceled morning schedule. I forgot about the pending emails. I forgot about the drilling noise at home. Sometimes getting derailed from your routine is the best thing that can ever happen to you because it forces you to slow down and experience the present. After about 45 minutes, the rain began to taper off, the heavy drumming sound turned into a gentle pitter patter, and the street outside started reflecting the pale sunlight like a giant mirror. I bought that old photography book as a small souvenir of the day. The shopkeeper wrapped it carefully in brown paper, tied it with a thin piece of string, and handed it to me with a nod. I stepped back out into the open air. Everything felt fresh, washed clean by the storm. The puddles on the ground were glowing, and the air had that earthy smell that only comes after rain. By now, it was already past 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and my stomach made a very loud, embarrassing sound to remind me that I had only had one small cup of tea all day. Instead of going to a regular fast food chain or ordering delivery on an app, I decided to continue my raw, unplanned adventure. I walked toward a small local eatery down the road that had steam pouring out of its open kitchen. The place was packed. Plastic tables, metal chairs, clattering plates, and the loud shouting of orders. It was chaotic, loud, and full of life. I managed to squeeze into a single empty chair at a shared table across from a college student who was deeply engrossed in his textbook. I ordered a plate of hot, freshly cooked food, simple comfort food. When the plate arrived at my table, steam was rising high, and the aroma made my mouth water immediately. I took my first bite, and honestly, it tasted better than any fancy restaurant meal. The flavors were bold, spicy, and honest. I ate quietly, listening to the conversations around me, people talking about their college exams, two businessmen discussing their sales targets, the kitchen staff shouting